Here we are yet another time in Thailand, but this time we decided to rent a car and explore the southwest coast of Thailand. And in this video you discover everything about renting a car. Is it a good idea? How much does it cost? What are the scams? But here is the car waiting for me, and let's start with this video. What is the best car size that you should rent here in Thailand? Obviously this depends on how many people are actually using this car. If you travel in a family of 5 or 6 people, probably you need quite a big car, like a family car or at least a small SUV. If you drive just in 2 of you, you need a small car. For example, in this trip we have 3 of us, so the 2 adults and a kid, and we have rented a Toyota Yaris, which is just perfect because we can put all of the bags in the boot of the car, so we can stop wherever we want and the car looks empty. Honestly, a small car works perfectly if the space is enough for you, because unless you go up in the mountain, Chiang Mai, Chiang Rai, you won't have any trouble with engine power. Is your local driving license enough to rent a car here in Thailand? Well, the easy answer is yes. The important thing is that they can read the driving license. So if it's written, for example, in Chinese, where you may not be able to rent the car just with your local driving license. But here is an important tip. If you get stopped by the police, they will need an IDP. If you don't have one, they're gonna charge you around $30 US. So my personal suggestion is to always have an IDP. It costs around $20 US. You can do it locally in your country, very easy going. It can save you quite a bit of money and time as well dealing with the police. Now, where can you rent your car? There are many possibilities. The first option is to rent it directly on site where you arrive in a location. This is an option that I wouldn't suggest because you may run into dodgy operators. What I've been doing for the last 5 years actually is to book through an aggregator, which is a website that compares all of the different local and international operators. I like this aggregator because it's a sort of Airbnb where every operator into the website is actually ranked by users like myself. So whenever you finish your rent, you just put your comments, feedback, and then the operators are ranked between 5 and 10 stars. And I usually rent the cars from operators between 8 and 10 stars, just to get the best service and less possibility of scam. I never had a problem for the last 5 years, which is good. So the system works quite well. I'm gonna put the link to this aggregator into the video description. Talking about insurance on a rented car. Now, let me say first that I am not a broker. I don't work in car rentals. So everything I say is based on my experience. Now, the cars that you rent here in Thailand typically comes with a CDW included. CDW stands for collision damage waiver, and this covers the damage to other properties and people as well as your own car in case you cause the accident. But there is a deductible, of course, and this deductible usually goes from $1,000 US to even $5,000 US I've seen. Now, if you want to reduce this deductible to 0, which I usually do, you just need a full insurance for the car. You may have this full insurance already in your credit card, and possibly you have only to activate it, so have a check to your credit card details. Otherwise, you can also do it at the rental car desk, but this is an option I wouldn't suggest because they charge you between $20 and $30 US per day, which can be even more of the cost of a rent of a car. What I usually do, I get the full insurance on the aggregator website I was talking about before, because they charge only $8 US per day, which is absolutely a bargain considering the peace of mind I can have during my trip. In Thailand, they drive on the left side of the road, so if you come from the UK, from Australia like myself, there's not much of a change, very easy going. But if you come from a country where usually you drive on the right side of the road, just take it easy for the first couple of days and then you will be fine. Follow the traffic more than leading the traffic. It's very, very rare you're gonna encounter a roundabout, which makes driving so much easier. And what about the locals? How do they drive? Well, based on our experience on multiple trips here with the car, I must say that they are really relaxed. almost chilled out. I haven't seen anyone speeding. Yes, maybe 10-20 kilometers more than the speed limit, but not crazy speeding. Especially entering the cities or the villages, not a problem at all, which is great. Keep in mind also that the cost of a car is quite high in Thailand and not many people can afford cars, so they mostly use scooters as you expect. And how is the traffic in Thailand? Well, personally, I may have already said that in the video and I will repeat it. Never rent a car in Bangkok. That's absolutely madness. It's really a bad decision. But if you're gonna start your trip from Bangkok, for example, to the south, to the north, a few years ago rented a car to go in the eastern regions, close to Cambodia and Laos, then rent a car at the airport. It's gonna be such a better experience. Phuket is another place which is quite busy. I am at the moment in Kamala Beach, which is probably the second biggest area here in Phuket, and it's not too bad. We drove here a few days ago. It's not a problem to find parking. The main road can be busy, but nothing really bad. And honestly, I feel much safer in a car than in a scooter. Making petrol in Thailand is super easy because there are gas or petrol stations literally everywhere in Thailand. If you stay on the main roads, you know, every 5-10 kilometers you find a petrol station. There is a Shell, there is PTT, which is this one, and all petrol stations are served, which means you don't need to do anything. You arrive, they put the petrol in. I had a couple of ladies looking after me, super smiley, absolutely great fun actually to make petrol. Can you believe it? Usually at the petrol station you find also a few cafes. Amazon Cafe is one of my favorite. Coffee is good, so I really suggest it for a stop. The cost of petrol is very similar to what you can find, for example, in Australia or in the US, which means it's much cheaper than in Europe. So this is another great thing actually of driving the car here in Thailand, because it's not gonna be an expensive experience like you have, for example, in Europe. You can pay the petrol with either cash or credit card, as I did with my telephone. Sometimes when you rent a car you see the plate, which is red, and you may wonder why. Is it because it's a rented car? Is it because we are foreigners? Well, the main reason is that the car is just being registered and they are waiting for the final plate. I'm exploring one of the beautiful beaches here on the west coast. Absolutely stunning places, one after the other. It's hard to get it wrong, to be honest with you. And I think this is the right time to talk about benefits and drawbacks of renting a car versus taking public transportation in Thailand. One of the greatest benefits of having a car is most definitely flexibility. I could stop in so many places along the route which I didn't plan to. We just saw on the map, we talked with locals during lunchtime, and we found so many beautiful spots which were totally unplanned. And sometimes a trip of 2 hours ended up in a trip of 5 hours, just because we experienced so much more than just the trip from A to B. Another great benefit is that you're not gonna have that time. And when I say that time, it's all that time that you're gonna wait for public transportation. Because if a bus leaves at 8, it may be 8, maybe 8:30, maybe 9. If they pick you up at the resort, once again, they tell you one time and maybe they show up 1 hour and a half later. But that's pretty normal here in Thailand. Money-wise, I am traveling on this trip with my wife and my kid, and I'm saving a little bit because if I take public transportation for 3 people, it's gonna cost more than actually just renting a car. This said, if you travel alone or in a couple, there is not much of a saving. In fact, if you're traveling alone, probably you're gonna spend more if you rent a car. Another great benefit, especially if you travel with bags, is that you don't have to carry around your backpack or your big bag. You just take it from the room into the car and from the car into the room in the next destination. As easy as that. The biggest drawback, of course, is that when you drive, you can't be as relaxed as when you take a bus. Jumping on a bus means that you can have a nap and boom, you arrive to the next destination. And of course, I would never rent a car if I plan to do some island hopping. And what roads should you expect in Thailand? Well, you'll be surprised because they're actually very, very good, especially if compared to the busy roads of Europe. What you see here on my back is a secondary road, sometimes with 1 lane, sometimes with 2 lanes. And the speed limit goes between 60 and 90 kilometers per hour. Then you have highway, especially live in Bangkok, and in that case, the speed limit is 120 kilometers per hour. And finally, the village streets or the city streets, and in that case, the speed limit is between 50 and 60 kilometers per hour. Personally, I would would never drive in Bangkok. But besides that, once you leave Bangkok, especially if you pick up a car in the Bangkok airport, is absolutely fine. We went a few years ago, for example, to the Isa region, which is in the east-north of Thailand, and we had no troubles at all navigating the roads, and we were super surprised actually by the highways. Very good quality, plenty of petrol stations, no worries at all. So parking in Thailand is not as complicated as you may think. Obviously in the major destinations like Bangkok, avoid renting a car in Bangkok, probably I already said that, but if you go to Ao Nang, close to Krabi, Patong in Phuket, and so on and so forth, then you have to spend some time looking for parking. I'm talking about 5-10 minutes, or you can park in one of his paying space and expect to pay between 10 and 20 baht, which is still a good price, less than €1. But otherwise, we always found the spot straight away, no worries. So this is definitely not a problem when you rent a car. Traffic lights in Thailand are usually positioned on top, like there, there, and there. A useful thing here in Thailand is that some of the traffic lights have a number of the seconds, like this one 87 or 40, for which the traffic light will be either red or green. Driving at night, is it a good idea? Well, probably. I wouldn't suggest driving at night in the countryside just because of the animals that you can encounter, from wild dogs, cats, and other animals that can cause accidents. But besides that, if you're in a small town like Krabi town here, you won't have much of a problem. Of course, I would never suggest driving in Bangkok. That's absolutely a nightmare that you want to avoid, both during the day and the night. Taking a ferry with a car in Thailand is pretty straightforward, and basically it's like everywhere else in the world. You need to buy a ticket, drive over the ferry, and boom, it's done. As easy as that. For example, here we are on a ferry boat to Koh Lanta, but it's a similar one, if I remember well, on the ferry boat to Koh Samui, just to give you an example. And a few years ago I got the ferry also to another island on the east coast, and was pretty much similar. But now it's time to go, so I'm gonna have to rush back to the car, otherwise I'm gonna miss it. You can also decide to rent an electric car. However, don't expect charging stations in the parking spots in town. This is something still very rare in Thailand unless you are in Bangkok. But did I say already that I wouldn't suggest renting a car inside Bangkok? Anyway, the big petrol stations you find electric chargers like this one here. Unfortunately, the superchargers are not as common, and you won't find any charging stations at the hotels. So you may be limited in some respects, and for this reason I still suggest to use petrol cars here in Thailand. And that's pretty much it about this video. I'm pretty sure I have missed something, and please do leave a message in case, so I can do a follow-up video probably in 2 or 3 weeks with all of the outstanding stuff. So I'm back to my car here. Remember to subscribe to the channel and also to put a like, because I do appreciate that a ton. So see you next week, always from Thailand. Ciao.